Today, we're going to look at how recruiters and recruitment agencies can take control of their online reputation with reviews. So due to the recent events that we're living in, a world that's more online than it's ever been before. So your online reputation is more critical than ever to your business success. So just quickly, I'm James, one of the co-founders of Sourcer. Was an ex-agency recruiter in Sydney previously, joined today by David Hayes as well, who was a senior client executive here and also previously an agency recruiter in the UK.
Hey, good afternoon.
Cool. David, have you got your speakers in? I'm just getting a little bit of feedback coming through on the...
No, on headphones.
Cool. We'll persevere. Hopefully everyone can hear okay. There is a chat section just to the right-hand side. So if anyone is having any technical difficulties, can't hear or see us or anything, you can shoot through on the chat section and we'll try and pick that up. There is also an opportunity to ask questions throughout this. So yeah, please feel free to leave those and we will pick those up at the end. So just quickly to run through the agenda first, I'll briefly cover off who Sourcer is. We'll discuss what online reputation actually is and why it's important. I'll then talk about how your customer behavior has changed and why reviews are more important than ever. We'll look at which review platforms are going to rate recruiters. We will also look at how Google uses reviews and why it matters to you. How to get more leads, i.e. clients and candidates through your website. How to boost engagement on LinkedIn with reviews so that you can help you attract more clients and candidates. And finally, we'll look at other ways that you can supercharge your marketing with reviews. As I mentioned before, we'll wrap this up with a Q&A at the end. So please do leave questions as we go through. And yeah, as I said, any technical issues, please shoot through on the chat box. Cool, over to David.
Cool. So I'm supposed to kick off. Who is Sourcer? What is Sourcer? Sourcer is Australia and New Zealand's #1 recruiter ratings platform. So recruiters use Sourcer to promote their capability through verified reviews and placements. And our job is to do three things, really. I suppose one, make it really easy for you to get feedback from your customers, which we go through direct integrations with your ATS. Two, help you promote your capability using effective technology to get your reviews in all the places online that your prospects might be. And three, provide insights and team performance, help provide better experiences for your customers to protect and develop your customer relationships as well. So whilst building this platform, I suppose we learned a lot about online reputation, as you might imagine, reviews and how to use them. And that's what we're looking forward to sharing with you today. So I suppose initially, to cover off a bit on online reputation, it's been known for years that building trust and credibility are critical to building a successful business. And people take their personal and business reputation very seriously because I suppose it impacts their ability to grow their networks and grow their business. So much like your offline reputation, it's what people's perception of you is. Your online reputation is what people's perception of you is too, but just online. And there are lots of things that can influence your reputation, your brand, your comments on social media, and importantly, your customer reviews as well, feedback. So much like in an offline world, our perception of people is influenced by others. Some people have good or bad reputations, and we often know about those reputations as well before we've even met them. The same is true here. Your customer reviews are what people are saying about you, and sort of one of the biggest influencers of your online reputation. And people read them, form a perception of you before you've even had the chance to interact with them.
So before we go further, I thought it was really important to highlight a significant change in buyer behavior that's happened over the last 5 to 10 years. And this means that our sales funnel has changed, even if we didn't know it. So many of you may have heard of sales funnels before or seen one that looks very similar to this one that's on the screen. There's different variations of this model, but they all broadly show the same thing. There's a buyer, in our case, a client or a candidate becomes aware of our service. So that could be through advertising outreach, or it could be through direct sales outreach. We then engage that buyer in conversation. So they'll listen to our sales pitch. They'll then potentially evaluate our service with some others. So a candidate may look at other jobs that are on offer, or a client may look at other recruitment services that are on offer. And if we get that process right, we get to the end and we get a job pickup, or we get a candidate that's willing to be considered or put forward for a role. What a lot of people don't realize, though, is that even though this is our sales process, that's not the journey that most of our customers go through today. Today, their journeys look much, much more like this. So a lot of you may have heard of the term of the rise of the informed buyer. So because of technology, buyers are more informed than they've ever been before. And just as I'm going through this, when I'm saying buyers, for us, again, I'm referring to a candidate and a client. they're more informed than they've ever been before. In fact, many buyers can be more than 60% of the way through the sales process before they even speak to a salesperson. So the internet has fundamentally changed our behavior. We like to do our own research in our own time before we engage with a service provider. We search for them on Google, we look them up on LinkedIn, or we check out their Facebook page. We search for reviews, or we want validation about this business to see what others think of them. I mean, think about the last time that you received outreach from a random service provider. We all get them every day. I'm sure some of you had them come through this morning, much like I did. Like most of them, we basically just ignore. But when one does pique our interest, what's the first thing that we do? It's not reply directly to the email or respond to the email. We may do that, but the first thing we do is we look them up online. We want to understand who this business is before we decide whether to respond. There's a reason it's becoming tougher than ever to do a pure cold call. And this is something very relevant to recruitment. I mean, think about the last time you received a pure cold call. We don't like it because we haven't had the time to do our own evaluation of the business in our own time. We don't just believe the sales pitch anymore. And so that's why you'll see sales leaders now talk much more about moving to warm calls. The phone is still important, but they look at ways that you can introduce your business and service over a period of time before making the call, because it gives the buyer an opportunity to evaluate you and your business, because that's now our natural behavior. So what does all this mean for you? Well, it means that every time you are reaching out to a new client or candidate, they are researching you and your business before deciding whether to engage with you. And so the question becomes, what would they find when they do that? And the first action point I'd love for you to take away from today is to go through your own buyer's journey. Research you and your agency if you were a candidate or client. What do you find? And would you engage with you if you were a client or candidate? Now, you may want to take that task a step further and do it for some of your competitors too, because that's going to give you a much more authentic view of a buyer's journey to understand what your candidates and clients are doing as they're seeking out to engage with a recruitment agency. So this buyer behavior has caused a significant rise in review platforms. People want to understand the experience of their peers before engaging with a service provider. So it all started about 10 years ago with consumer reviews. I'm certainly not allowed to go to a cafe on the weekend without my girlfriend signing off. It has a 4.3 or higher on Zomato. Apparently 4.3 is the benchmark. Then we came to B2B products, and I would imagine most of you, before purchasing your software for your business, would have compared it on a service like G2 Crowd or Capterra. But more recently, what we've seen is a move into the professional services space. So we've got LawPath rating lawyers, we've got Rate My Agent rating real estate agents, advisor ratings for financial advisors, and the list goes on. And it actually makes complete sense, because the people that are choosing cafes at the weekend are the same people that are choosing software for their business or picking a professional service provider. So the buyer behavior is actually the same. Now, there's lots of information on, why reviews matter and why you should care about them. There's stacks of research on this, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of them before we kick off into the main pieces. So LinkedIn found that authenticated and verified user reviews are a primary source of pre-purchase B2B guidance. So what that means is that before clients are deciding to bring in a B2B vendor, i.e. a recruitment company, they are wanting to look for verified user reviews. And you may have experienced that when you've got onto a PSL, when they've asked you for, reviews or references from other clients. It's the same thing, but they can now do all of that online. Now, another stat that I think is really important is Bright Local. They found that 84% of people trust online reviews just as much as personal recommendations. And that number has grown quite significantly over the last few years as people have started to adapt to the online world. So just to quickly summarize this section, look, buyer behavior has changed, whether we like it or not. Prospective clients and candidates will research you before deciding whether to respond to your outreach. And reviews are the best way that you can showcase the positive experiences of your existing customers to try and gain new ones. So ultimately, by displaying reviews, we can increase response rates and ultimately increase revenue for our business too.
Cool. So with James, I suppose, covering off why reviews matter, which review platforms rate recruiters? I mean, there's lots of different platforms, and you can rate it on. But today, I just wanted to cover off the major ones, really, and they need to be aware of. And I'm sure you already are aware of. But to start off, I suppose LinkedIn is probably the biggest platform in our industry, and it's important that you're on there and active. And, I mean, they have a feature called LinkedIn Testimonials that you're all aware of. You can request a testimonial or someone can leave one about you, but you're in control over what gets displayed in your profile. Because of that, they can be trusted less by people viewing them. So, I mean, it's difficult to take those testimonials and use them on other sites because of how the feature is designed. And there's no rating specific to recruitment. The testimonial is about the individual recruiter only and not the agency as a whole. So despite all of that, we still definitely recommend having your team collect some testimonials simply due to the number of views they get on the LinkedIn profiles. But it's not a complete review solution. But I mean, you should still have some on there. They're really important, but just be aware of their, I suppose, their failings. Because moving on to Google reviews, which are pretty interesting. And again, just about every agency will have their own Google My Business account, and anyone can leave a review on your business, whether you like it or not. Google will make the reviewer log in with Google. So there is some level of verification, but ultimately anybody can write anything they want. And the process to rectify fake reviews can be time consuming and often involve expensive, lengthy legal routes as well. So you may have seen the court outcome for this year, where an Adelaide lawyer received $750,000 in court after somebody, instead of posting negative Google reviews, the lawyer claiming he lost about 80% of his business due to the impact of these reviews. So it is super important. That said, Google does provide a widget as well for your website, and we'll talk more about that later. But outside of that, there are a few other places you can use them. They offer a straight 5-star rating, but it's a general review about the agency. It can't be separated to recruiter level. And offers very little insight or none at all, really. And while there are definite challenges with Google reviews, it is well worth investing in some time and making sure you have a good rating, as this is going to be front and center when clients and candidates search for you on Google, and helps return stronger Google results, better SEO. And finally, there's Sourcer, our platform, which is specific to recruiters. And you can only be reviewed if you request a review from a client or candidate. So although you can't remove a review just because it's bad, unlike LinkedIn, this gives you a reasonable level of control whilst providing that integrity to a review system that candidates and clients are looking for. So, how does that work? We tie every review to a placement, which means candidate, client, recruiter all tell us a specific event, i.e. in this case, a placement happened, and hence we know that all parties existed. So this is a unique method to the recruitment space, and it means we get both verified reviews and verified placements as well. For prospects to make better buying decisions from. That aside, we also provide a suite of tools so you can get your reviews in more places online as well, including a tool to get you more Google reviews automatically to help drive that click-through SEO. And our ratings are specific to recruitment. So you're assessed on 4 categories, and the reviews are visible both on recruiter and agency profiles, which kind of brings us to kind of an interesting kind of action point or something to do if you have time. Have a look at your ratings across these platforms. For you, your teams and your agency, and this is what your clients and candidates are looking at. What I suppose some of you or most of you might find is that you have a lot of ratings that you didn't know about across the web as well. So I'd say a large portion of your reputation you aren't aware of currently. So being able to manage that and being conscious of it is super important.
Cool. Before we talk about how Google uses reviews, I thought it was worth reminding everyone what Google's goal is. Its mission is to organize the world's information and make it useful. So Google wants to help its users find whatever it is that they're looking for. But what we want as business owners is for our business to be shown as high up as possible in the search results page when potential customers are searching on Google, so we're more likely to be clicked on. Now, to do that, we need to make sure that the information we want is available online so that Google can find it and it really understands what we are and who we can help. Now, reviews are just one part of the information that Google uses in its rankings, but some experts estimate it can contribute up to 13% of the weighting, which is one of the largest contributors to the ranking. So it's well worth paying attention to. So just quickly, the information that appears on the right-hand side here, all of that information you can control using a free tool called Google My Business that David mentioned earlier. Every agency should have this set up, as it tells Google key information about your business. If you don't, we've got a blog coming out on this tomorrow, and we'll send it through to everyone that's attended the webinar today as well, that will explain how and why you should have that set up. So back to reviews, Google scours the web looking for reviews. It doesn't just look at its own, it looks at all the other reviews it can find on the internet. it not only looks at the overall rating, but also the relevance of the review to certain categories. So Google can contextualize the reviews and know what product or service they're related to. So when we design Sourcer as a review platform, we design the reviews in a way that Google knows that they're related to recruitment. And we've included categories like technology or finance, for example, to give further context to them. So Google actually goes even further than that, and it analyzes the text of the reviews as well. And then it takes all of this information, and that's what it uses to try and help itself understand whether to display your business in the search results when people are looking. So that's a little bit of how it does from a ranking perspective. When I'm referring to ranking, I'm talking about how high we are up on the Google search results page. Ranking is one objective, but even if we are high, we want to make sure that people actually click on us as well, as we're likely to be displayed amongst competitors or other businesses that are on there as well. Now, depending on the software that you're using to collect reviews, Google will display them in the search results page. So you'll see that Google has reviews both at its own reviews here. It also collects reviews from the web down here. And you will also potentially get some softwares like ours, but there are others out there that can display reviews within your search results page. Now, research has shown that companies that display reviews in their search results are 3 times more likely to be clicked on. So getting this right means more traffic to your website and more potential customers. So in terms of how to get more leads through your website, many recruitment agencies spend a lot of money on their websites, but they don't see the results that they want from them. So as recruiters, what we're looking for are candidates applying to roles or clients inquiring about our services. And one of the biggest challenges we have is actually standing out and differentiating ourselves. And look, I've displayed 2 bits of information here I want to talk through, which I think are really important to be aware of. So CareerBuilder and Innovero run a survey each year looking at a few different things, but one of them that they do is the Net Promoter Score for the recruitment industry. So that's surveying 3,000 recruitment industry customers to understand the Net Promoter Score for it. This blue line at the bottom here, that is the one that we're talking about. We've gone from plus 33 in 2009 down to -2 in 2019. So we've had a very significant drop. And unfortunately, what that means is there are people out there with a negative perception of recruiters. What we want to do is differentiate ourselves from them. Now, added to that challenge is that most recruitment agencies, unfortunately, look and sound quite the same. And this is feedback we've had a lot as we've built this platform. Now, the same guys that did the survey on the left did the one on the right too. They asked recruitment agency leaders and managers and owners, what makes you different? How do you try and differentiate yourself? And they basically found that everybody says exactly the same thing. So 90% claim that they deliver a higher level of service than anybody else, and 75% they only hire the best and highest quality of staff, and that's why they're better than everybody else. But if everybody is saying the same thing, how do you actually prove that you're different? And this is why customer reviews are so important. So reviews help you prove that you're different. They build trust in your brand and confidence in your service. Now, when it comes to your website, many people will include testimonials directly on their website, which are definitely worth doing. But what you can do to build greater trust and confidence is include what we call third-party reviews. So, i.e., you haven't been in control of them, it's a third party that's done it. Now, when adding testimonials to your website, you could literally write anything that you wanted. And there have been companies that have sprouted up from this situation because visitors to websites no longer trusted what was written on them. And so we saw a big rise in third-party review platforms. We have one, there's lots of general ones you may have heard of, like Trustpilot and lots of others in Google reviews. The difference with third-party widgets is it means you can't alter the ratings. So adding a widget to your website shows visitors, A, that you're confident in your service, and B, that you're happy for a third party to speak to your customers and display those results on your website, even though you don't have control of it. And from our experience, we can expect to see an uplift of 20% in candidate applications and about 10 to 15% in client inquiries just by displaying third-party widgets on your website. Now, most review platforms have widgets. We have our own customizable versions, which are super simple to install, but Google also has a review widget, and many of the review platforms have theirs too. So another action to take away from today, and I'll summarize these all at the end, is once you've got customer reviews, make sure they're on your website, because that's going to help massively increase your conversion of visitors.
Cool. So LinkedIn has always been, I mean, a major platform of our industry, obviously, but even more so right now, with many teams working remotely due to the recent global pandemic. And we've already seen a spike in activity on LinkedIn as people use it to connect with customers, prospects, colleagues. And then we've already talked about why reviews are so important. It seems obvious that you would want to make sure you have your reviews visible on a platform like LinkedIn, among others as well. But our goal here is to increase our followers and our engagement on each post, because this means we get our brand in front of more passive prospects. And also when we post our jobs to LinkedIn, we get more eyes on them, which means more candidates without paying for expensive advertising. And the best way to do that is by sharing reviews. People like to celebrate success, particularly in a time like this. And our customers often find when they share their reviews, they can 3x the engagement they do on other posts. So a couple of kind of insights or tips from ourselves that we've noticed is you'll get better engagement by sharing them on your personal channel rather than your company page. And usually your personal network is bigger than your company followers anyway, but also people prefer to interact with people rather than brands. It's just more personable. Another great way we've seen customers do this is by tagging team members and even the candidates or clients in the review. So we often see this where a manager shares a team member's review, and by tagging other people in the review, they in turn like and comment, which boosts the initial engagement, helping it to spread further. It's also just a great way to congratulate team members as well on a job well done, or thank clients and candidates for working with you, celebrate mutual successes, all of that good stuff. And another great tip as well, I suppose, would be, because reviews get such high engagement, try adding jobs you're recruiting for to the text or the comment section. So share a review from a recent placement, and then include in the text that you're currently looking for another, say, full stack developer, net developer, whatever it may be. This kind of thing really works, and to help you get more candidates without spending on expensive ads. Just proves your capability on the spot when you're kind of shopping around the market. I suppose a good action to take away from this and kind of try on yourselves is take a look at the reviews you already have for you and your team, and share one to LinkedIn and tag people in the review, or share details of a job you're hiring for. And for those of you that use Sourcer Pro, you can create custom templates as well to make your reviews look great. But if you're not using Sourcer, you can use free software, the likes of Canva, to create templates as well. They've got loads of awesome options as well, just about everything you could be looking for. So LinkedIn is pretty important, but I want to kind of highlight, I suppose, kind of supercharging your marketing using reviews. It's important that you make reviews the stars of your marketing. So when you're reaching out to a prospect for the first time, whether that's through an advert or outreach, you need a way to differentiate, and reviews are an awesome way to do that. So again, some things to kind of try and kind of some takeaways. Adding reviews to your team's email signature. We've tested this, and they get really strong click-through, and they improve response rates by about 20%. And it's really easy to do. Just takes a minute. And I'll send you an article from our help center on how you can add hours, which link back to your Sourcer profile to prove all of your capabilities. I know a lot of our current users are on the webinar, but for those who don't use Sourcer Pro, you can follow the same process and link to your testimonial page or Google reviews as well if you want. Adding them to job adverts is super useful. And in the current climate as well, if you're spending money on job adverts, you want to make sure you get the best results possible. And there's research to show that candidates are nervous about applying for agency roles because they're concerned they may not hear back, or that recruiters don't really work on the candidate's interests or on their behalf to the full extent. And displaying reviews in your job adverts is the best way to differentiate yourself and increase the performance of your ads, but also kind of validate your offering to candidates as well. And if you have Sourcer as well, I mean, you can link directly to that, or you can link to your own testimonial or review page as well. So just some kind of takeaways there might be useful to look into.
Cool. I just wanted to cover one last thing before we wrap up and go to the Q&A. I just want to quickly touch on something called review syndication. So review syndication means being able to get your reviews in more places online. You don't want to have to ask your customers for reviews for every review platform that you want to use, because clearly that's going to be very annoying for your customers. Before deciding on which review platforms you want to dedicate your time to, make sure that you're going to be able to get the reviews from those platforms onto the other platforms that you want to get them on, and that they're not stuck on the one platform. It's something we've spent a lot of time talking about and working on. So we're happy to discuss this further with you at any time. I just wanted to cover off some of the action points we've talked about today. So go through your buyer's journey and research you and your agency like you are a candidate or client. And if you can, do the same process for your competitors as well. It's really important that you go through that journey and see things through the eyes of your customer, because things will become apparent that you may not have noticed before. Check your ratings on the review platforms, particularly Google. A lot of people don't realize that they actually have Google ratings. Because you can't control that one, you may find that you're on there, and you may find that the results that are on there are not really reflective of you and your agency. If you need tips on how to rectify that, shoot me an email anytime. I'm happy to talk you through that. Make sure you have Google My Business set up. As I said, we're releasing a blog tomorrow on that. I will make sure that goes out to everyone that's attended the webinar today as well. Really important, super simple, free, and 5 minutes to set up. Really important that you get that set up. If you have reviews, make sure they're on your website. We want to make sure that our reviews are in as many places online as possible where our prospects might be, and your website is one of them. So if you've got them, make sure that they're on there. Share any of your reviews to LinkedIn. So as we talked about before, we want to try sharing one of the reviews we already have. You can use Canva to create a template. If you're a Sourcer user, you can use our templates, and tag either some of your teammates in it if it's about them, maybe the client or candidate if that's appropriate, or if not, you might want to try adding a job if you've got a job on at the moment, and you want to post that with a review. That would be a good thing to do as well. And finally, decide which review platforms are right for you. Not every review platform is right for everybody, so you want to make sure that you have got a good understanding of them and you're on the ones you want to be on, and the ones that you kind of have to be on, such as Google, where you kind of can't be on it. You have a strategy in place to ensure that your ratings aren't going in a direction you don't want them to, because you haven't got a strategy on it. So that's a quick summary of today. I'm just going to hand over to David to look at questions.
Yeah, so thanks for taking the time this afternoon. I hope you took some good insights away from that, kind of help you along at all, particularly with the way kind of, I suppose, day-to-day businesses have changed. But yeah, just jump through a couple of questions. Have a look. Right, Sarah has asked, I'm concerned this is going to open up to negative reviews. Candidates particularly may be unhappy at being rejected for a role, for example. How can I defend against this so as not to damage our brand?
Yeah, look, it's something that we talk about a lot as we're speaking to clients. Everyone's concerned about negative reviews. I think, look, there's a couple of things to touch on here. What I'm going to say sounds quite strange. I'll explain what it means a little more later. But negative reviews, provided you don't get a lot of them, are the best things you can get. And I'll explain what that means in a moment. Now, there are some review platforms like Google, for example, where you're not in control of the reviews that are going through. In those instances, so if your ratings become low because either someone's left false reviews, or candidates have maybe jumped on because you missed a response to them, or whatever it is, the best thing you do is get more positive reviews to outweigh them. That's one of the best things you can do. The second thing that you should be doing is responding to ideally all reviews, but certainly the negative reviews. It's really about the way businesses respond to them, and that kind of comes on to the point I made before around why the occasional negative review can be one of the best things you get. Two reasons for that. One is that there's research that shows that people are more likely to pick a service provider with a 4.7 to a 4.9 rating than a 5, because nobody believes a 5 is true. And the second reason is when everyone goes to a review site, the first thing that they do is they go to the negative review, and they want to look at how does this business handle things when things go bad. And so being able to respond in a positive way to that situation and dealing with it in an integral and professional way can actually go a long way to supporting your business. So it can actually be a positive thing. Now, naturally, if you get too many, the best thing you want to do is outweigh them with much more positive reviews. They would be my couple of tips on that bit.
Cool. Let me grab a couple more. We won't take too much time.
Yeah, just do one more.
Okay. Okay. Charlotte has asked, if Google is the biggest review platform, wouldn't it be best just to focus on getting Google reviews?
Yeah, good point. Look, we are big champions of getting Google reviews for the pure reason that Google is the biggest platform. It's where people will potentially be searching for your business, and there's big what we call SEO, search engine optimization benefits to having Google reviews. So you should be trying to get them. In terms of why you shouldn't just focus on that, the challenge with Google reviews, and we talked about a few earlier, but I think the crux of it is they're not recruitment specific. And so there's not a lot of context that goes around those reviews. They're also all done at an agency level and not done about particular individuals. And certainly we find that recruitment tends to be on a personal level. So people want to know the performance of individuals. Yes, they want to know about the agency, but they also want to know about the individual too. So what I would think about as you're doing this is how can you synchronize this? So there will be other examples, I'm sure, in the market, but just to touch on how we manage this, we make sure that when you get a review through Sourcer, now that review is attached and verified to a placement. So we know the review is about a specific placement in a specific area. It's got context to it. So, you imagine if you were a candidate or client, that's the kind of insight you would want to try and understand whether you're the right person to work with. But what we do then is make sure that if you get a 4-star or higher through us, we will pop up the Google review form straight after ours. We'll copy the text over for the person leaving the review, and they just need to press one button and it submits it on Google too. So we actually make sure that those reviews syndicate across the two platforms by getting you more Google reviews and more Sourcer reviews as well. So that would be my best advice. That is thinking, do definitely invest in Google, but think about how you can get your reviews in more places and potentially how you can use platforms that are more specific to your industry as well. Cool. We are literally just on the 30-minute mark. I think David's lost his camera, so it's probably time to wrap up. I really thank everyone for taking 30 minutes out to join us. I will follow up with an email. We'll give you a copy of the webinar we did today. We'll also send through some of the documents that we talked about in terms of Google My Business and some other things. But thank you all for your time. It's been great talking to you, and hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar.